Hey Tea Squad, it's Kirsty. Welcome back to Dropping the True Crime Tea. Quick content note before we sip. Today's story includes murder, manipulation, and a staged attack. Please take care of yourself while listening. What if your closest friend became the last person to see you alive, and the first person to collect your life insurance? What if a wrongful conviction sent a husband to prison while the real story kept boiling under the lid until a bizarre, made-for-TV stunt blew the case wide open? Today, we're diving into the tangled saga around Betsy Faria, her husband Russ, and their friend Pam Hupp, a case that starts as a tragic domestic homicide and twists into a courtroom reckoning, a staged ambush, and a death penalty prosecution still on the horizon. Cue the kettle, let's pour. Betsy Faria was known for her warmth and resilience. In the days before she died, a major change happened. Her life insurance policy was switched so that her friend, Pam Hupp, became the sole beneficiary. Not long after, Betsy was found dead in her home in eastern Missouri. The scene was brutal. Her husband, Russ, found her and called for help. From the jump, investigators focused hard on Russ. The marriage had stress, like many do, and when the story is put into a neat little box, spouse equals suspect, it can be hard for a narrative to break free. Despite alibi witnesses who said Russ was out with friends, despite timing questions, the prosecution pushed forward. A jury convicted him. He was sent away. But that wasn't the end of Russ's story. As the years turned, journalists, defense attorneys, and newly attentive officials looked again. A judge granted a new trial. This time, it was a quieter courtroom, a bench trial, no jury, where the judge heard evidence that had never reached the first jurors. The result? Russ was acquitted. The official record shifted. One man's conviction was vacated, and the question of who killed Betsy came roaring back. While the public was still arguing about who did what, Pam Hupp staged a scene that sounds almost fictional. She pretended to be connected to a television news magazine, approached strangers with a strange request, and lured a man named Louis Gumpenberger to her home. There, Hupp shot and killed him and tried to make it look like he was a hired attacker tied to Russ. Investigators quickly noticed troubling details, a handwritten note about Russ's money, and cash with telling serial number patterns. The story she offered didn't square with the physical evidence. Hupp eventually entered an Alford plea, that means you don't admit guilt, but you accept a conviction, and received a life sentence with no chance of parole for Gumpenberger's killing. That staged encounter changed everything. Suddenly, the public could visualize a frame job, and the door swung back open on Betsy's case. A new prosecutor re-examined Betsy's murder from the ground up. After a major case review, Pam Hupp was charged with killing Betsy. Prosecutors have announced they will seek the death penalty. Because of the intense publicity, the venue moved to a neighboring county. The trial is scheduled for the future, not this year, and is expected to run for weeks once it starts. As of today, Hupp is serving her life sentence for the later killing, and she maintains her plea posture there. For Betsy's case, Hupp is presumed innocent unless proven guilty at trial. Let's talk motive and method, because that's where this story sticks to the ribs. The policy: Betsy's life insurance changed to Hupp just before the murder, looked like a motive bullseye. Hupp ultimately kept the payout after a civil fight in court. The scene echoes. The staged encounter with Gumpenberger carried eerie callbacks to Betsy's murder, a note mentioning the husband's supposed money, details that echoed the brutality at Betsy's home, and cash evidence that didn't behave like coincidence. Control and narrative. Again and again, you see attempts to control the story: who's the villain, who's the victim, who's credible. That urge to script the narrative is a through line in this saga. This case didn't just upend one family, it rattled the system. Russ sued over how the original investigation and prosecution were handled and reached a settlement. And more recently, a former investigator was charged with perjury connected to testimony from the early days of the case. When a wrongful conviction unravels, it drags on everything attached to it: careers, reputations, and public trust. So, what really happened to Betsy? The state will put its theory before a jury, the defense will push back hard. At the center sits a story about friendship, money, and a pattern of manipulation, and the justice system's responsibility to get it right the second time. If you're new here, you know I don't rush to judgment. We stick to what's on the record: court filings, prosecutor statements, venue orders, plea documents, and verified reporting. Where the record is clear, we say so. Where it's contested, we say alleged. That's how we keep the tea hot and accurate. All right, Tea Squad, I want your thoughts. Does the pre-death insurance change read like motive to you, or could there be an innocent explanation? How much weight would you give to the staged encounter if you were a juror on Betsy's case? And do you think a fresh venue and modern forensic review will make the story clearer at trial? Sound off in the comments. Keep it respectful, we care about people first, clicks second. That's today's pour on the Betsy Faria case and the Pam Hupp saga, a wrongful conviction overturned, a staged ambush, and a death penalty case waiting in the wings. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit follow, share it with a friend who loves a twisty story, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next drop. I'm Kirsty. Stay safe, protect your peace, and I'll see you in the next one.